Harry, have you seen my extra special trophy?
The curse has been passed on. You'll never feel joy again.
Welcome to the Loot Drop. This week we have another guest, but before we get into that, let's talk about everything Ubisoft revealed over the weekend. Now, call me old-fashioned, but weekend announcements? Well, I don't know about that. Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope revealed some new gameplay and also showed that they're going to have 3 new DLCs. Good news for fans of turn-based strategy and characters with invisible arms and legs, because one of those DLCs will focus on Rayman. Awesome! I hope you like Assassin's Creed, because there's a bunch of them coming to about every platform and time period. Now, I'm going to rapid fire these because there's a ton to talk about. AC Mirage takes you to 821 AD Baghdad and will not feature the action RPG elements of modern AC games. Instead, it'll be a shorter than we're used to seeing AC game, and it'll focus on stealth and parkour, releasing sometime in 2023. Assassin's Creed is coming back to its roots. AC Hex also has me super excited. There's no release date, gameplay, or details, but it's definitely about witches. Sick. If feudal Japan is more your time period of choice, AC Codename Red will let you take to the tiled rooftops as a shinobi. A standalone mobile game, AC Codename Jade, will take the series back to China. It'll be an open world game and allow you to create a custom character, and yes, it's on mobile, but it looks legit. You know, Ubisoft does have games that aren't Assassin's Creed, like Skull and Bones, which started as a DLC for Assassin's Creed. As the November 8 release date rapidly approaches, Ubisoft showed off pirate lairs where you can sell your treasure to fund further pirate adventures, and different coloured sails? I'm still hesitant on this one because most of the gameplay I saw looked like inventory management and selling treasure. Snore. It's a game about pirates who are meant to be all like, arr, you know, like boisterous and stuff, but it's all a bit too serious. There's also the Rainbow Six and the Division mobile games coming out, but that's enough Ubisoft for now. So streamers, we love watching them play video games, but how do we feel about them making video games? Now, you got Dr. Disrespect with his game Dead Drop, which is like every other competitive FPS game, except it's set in like a building or something. And if you're thinking, no, Harry, I want to see a competitive FPS game made by my favorite streamers, Fresh and LazarBeam, well, good news! Fresh and LazarBeam released a gameplay trailer of their FPS game WorldBoss.io with maps that look like they were ripped straight out of Fortnite. Are you telling me that this isn't Tilted Towers? It looks to be an FPS battle royale with upgradable weapons and perks and boasts unique builds and playstyles, but it looks like every other game you've ever seen except with state-of-the-art Nintendo 64 textures. Just because you play heaps of video games doesn't mean you can develop them, but points for trying, I guess. My only issue is how unoriginal they seem, but it makes sense. These streamers spend their entire lives and careers playing one single video game. It's like when I was obsessed with this claymation penguin cartoon called Pingu, and I wrote an original TV script about a claymation wombat called Wombu. Now, obviously, I'm just mucking around. These streamers, they deserve a break because the burnout for streamers is unreal. They're streaming for hours a day. It's crazy. And huge streamers like Ninja and Pokemon, they've noted that they want to take a break, and maybe developing a video game is the kind of break that these streamers need. And maybe they seem derivative to someone like me, but I honestly hope they do well. Now it's time for our special guest, Jem. She visited the Powerhouse Museum for their Up Late gaming event.
Thanks, Harry. I'm Jem here at the Sydney Powerhouse to find out some alternate paths into the games industry if you're like me and you suck at math. Let's go find out. My first stop was meeting with Holly Hawkins from Wargaming Sydney, who is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to starting a career in games.
The Australian games industry is rapidly expanding, especially now with increased funding and more studios taking interest in Australian real estate. Because it is such a diverse industry with a whole lot of skill sets that are captured, you can get into sound, art, even customer relations. A lot of the studio makeups that I've seen, it's very engineer focused, but people who are designers, artists, people who focus on the UI, UX and how people engage with the game, they're the ones that really craft the experience. I did get into wargaming through an internship program, so I strongly recommend any opportunity to get any sort of mentorship or internship, paid or unpaid. Experience is really the key to the door.
After a brief but flirtatious encounter with Wario, I met with Kelsey Gamble from the League of Geeks to find out about the different types of gaming jobs available.
If you want to work in games, you don't have to necessarily be a developer. There's all sorts of things that you can be doing. Don't let the idea that you're supposed to be good at maths be the thing that stops you from doing the thing you want to do. I worked at a game store and just kind of worked my way in bit by bit, ended up in customer service, ended up in a social media team, and basically found myself in a position where I was a community manager. I don't have any qualifications. I didn't come from anywhere in particular. I didn't go to university to study a particular thing. One of the biggest things is to get your foot in the door in the way of, starting to do things on your own. So let's say you want to work in community management. Join a Discord, become a mod. You don't necessarily need to have a job to prove that you've got experience in the field. As a manager, I've hired plenty of people that haven't actually had an official job in games, but they've done a lot of really good work on YouTube, for example. And so, there's never a bad time to kind of start looking at that stuff, I would say.
I soon came across swaths of excited people sitting in a circle and thought I'd better investigate. There I found Stephen and Evan from Blood on the Clock Tower, who were happy to chat about designing tabletop games.
I'd never produced a board game before when Stephen approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to make a game?" I was like, "I've never made a game before." He goes, "Sweet, neither have I. Let's figure it out." It's been 8 years of Stephen designing Clock Tower, about 6 years of us producing it. But the story of Blood on the Clock Tower has been that we are just always keeping up with it. It's this wonderful, lovely thing that just runs away from us, and we are just trying to keep up with its engagement, with people playing it, with how much fun people are having with it.
Designing a game and developing a game, I thought were going to be the same thing, and they're actually really different. To design a game, if you want to have even Australia-wide success or ideally international success, start with a unique idea and the unique idea that you are passionate about.
So my advice is get advice. Talk to as many people as you can. People will give you tips and you figure it out as you go along.
After jumping into some games and seminars, I met up with museum curator Chloe Appleby to talk about the benefits of networking at events.
I volunteered here for years and I managed to get into curatorial and then snaked my way into gaming. There are 405 studios in Australia and it's just a way that we can provide a platform for people to come in, network, learn, see people who've just started their career and fresh out of uni, making a game to a founder of a company, showing them what can be done.
So I hope that was helpful to some of you who might have an interest in the games industry but aren't quite sure where to start. I had a great time. Events like these are so important to both the industry and to gamers. So if you have the opportunity, you should absolutely check them out. Back to you, Harry.
And now it's time for Belly News. Eagle-eyed fans have spotted some posters in Naughty Dog's latest re-release of Last of Us Part 1, which they think are teasers for an unannounced new game. The posters display hallmark fantasy tropes such as swords, dragons and unicorns alongside a Naughty Dog sticker. And Belly News! Hogwarts Legacy doesn't have playable Quidditch. Belly News! Did you know gaming have unearthed the cancelled Zelda title by the Metroid Prime developers Retro Studios? 15 years ago, the unreleased Zelda game focused on the origin of the Master Sword, and it was set during the bad ending of Ocarina of Time. You played as the last male Sheikah and ran around an overworld where you'd get sucked into combat encounters rather than having enemies roaming the world. Retro Studios ex-programmer Paul Tozua said the combat was a hot mess and described it as a worse version of Whack-A-Mole. Ultimately, the game was cancelled because the higher-ups at Retro Studio, they didn't like the game. This last one's not barely news, but it's a quick one. Screen Australia has reopened their Games Expansion Pack Fund, which offers up to $150,000 to teams, but these teams have to submit a playable prototype. Now, this fund first started in March 2022, and it's reopened now and goes until May 2023. Support Aussie developers. That's the loot drop. Coming out this week is Metal Hellsinger on PlayStation, Xbox and PC, and the current gen upgrade to Outer Wilds on PlayStation and Xbox. Man, I love drawing. That's why I want you to send me some prompts and then I'll draw them and we'll put them in our YouTube shorts. Right now I'm drawing my dad being proud of me. See, it's blank.